wood desk
Mm-hmm.
with the wood seat. They were black and wood like that. So a little pencil tray thing in the desk. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking around. So yeah.
Yeah, so here in Iowa, all of the rural schools are put on 1 acre plot, like 1 acre by 1 acre plots.
Mhm.
Is that very similar to Illinois?
That was how my school was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like that.
Mhm.
It was actually where two roads came together, Cloverdale Road and Galena Road. It was kind of at the corner, and behind it was a cornfield. So yeah, it was kind of, I would say it was probably an acre to an acre and a half plot, kind of at the point, at the end of a field, is where the school was, and the playground and everything. So it wasn't a huge area. Yeah, and it was just a building. It did have a downstairs, but that was mainly for storage, and then that was kind of where we ate lunch, and it was just a bunch of long tables. And I think I told you, we took a sack lunch. Everybody, you had either a lunch box or a sack lunch. You brought your own lunch every day. There was no food. There were cartons of milk in the milk tray containers. So you had white milk, chocolate milk, and orange drink.
Ooh.
Yeah, was what you could get. And so you picked your carton of milk and found a spot to sit down and eat your lunch. And then after a little bit of time, then they would, let's stop for recess and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting because we interviewed somebody from Nebraska and he explained their plot maps and what that looked like, and it looked like puzzle pieces.
Really?
Yeah, very bizarre and different. So I was just curious. Every state's different in a sense.
Yeah. And it may have been different, somewhere else, but that was where that school was at. It was just at the end of a field. It's like almost like a triangle-shaped piece of ground, and that's where the school was at. And, yeah, the playground was on one side.
Yep. So again, I told you, this is a very informal conversation. This is pretty much the extent of the formality right here. But feel free to talk about anything. Any memories you have, even if you want to jump back or forward different questions, I have people who are like, oh yeah, let me go back.
You kind of remember things, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we could just start by saying where the name of your school, the city, the township.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So what was it?
The name of the school was Union School, and it was in Chillicothe, Illinois, and the township was Hallock Township. And it was just all the kids that lived out in the country. There was probably, I got to thinking about it, and it was probably 15 to 20 families, I'm kind of remembering, was the main population in the school, because most of the families had 4 or 5 kids. So by the time you had, your family had 4 or 5 kids in a little rural school, you're kind of populating that school with all these different kids, and it was, it was all the kids we kind of all already knew, because our families kind of all knew each other living out in the country off the blacktop, because time to time we'd help each other. Whether it was, in the wintertime, help each other getting in and out of their roads or their driveways, or somebody needed help because, the well stopped, can we come get some water or something like that. So you all kind of knew each other. And then we all went to school together, and you all knew everybody's brothers and sisters. And it was kind of like a big family kind of thing, really, because you all knew each other, and you rode the bus together, and yeah, so that's kind of how it worked.
So you lived on a farm, correct?
It was an acreage. It wasn't really a farm per se. My dad worked at Caterpillar, and but we had 46 acres. There was a pond and timber. There was a 10-acre pasture. So from time to time we would have a couple horses, or one time, for whatever reason, my dad had a couple of cows, and then he would cut the field, and we'd have hay for any particular animal, or sometimes he'd sell it or whatever. But yeah, it was a lot of timber, creeks, pond, a lot of that.
And the years?
I was at the school first grade until I was going into fifth grade.
Okay.
And then at fifth grade, that's when the school district decided to shut down Union School. And then all of us, all the kids that went there, went to a bigger grade school called Mossville, which was also kind of out in the country, but it was a regular, a bigger grade school.
Okay.
So yeah, they just pulled us all into that school.
What decade was this?
Oh gosh. I have to think about it. I was born in 58, so it would have been in the 60s, late 60s. Yeah, mid to late 60s.
Okay, so consolidation was much later compared to Iowa then. Yeah, that's interesting too.
Yeah, because I went there, and then my brother and my sister went there. My youngest brother never went to that school. He was too young, so he never went there. So yeah.
How far away was it from your acreage to the school? About a mile, 2 miles?
I'd say a mile and a half. You could have walked to it if you needed to.
Did you walk?
No, we did have a bus, and so it was a smaller bus because it wasn't that many kids, but it came up the blacktop road and made the stops all along the way and picked up all the kids and stuff. Yeah.
Interesting. So talking about your rural school a little bit, was it white or what color?
It was white.
It was white?
Yep. It was just a basic kind of a rectangular, plain white building with, the big windows weren't huge on it. Yeah, and it was nothing fancy. It was just each classroom was one big room, and there was 2 classes in each room with 1 teacher. There was probably, 8 to 10 kids in each grade.
Oh, okay.
So you're talking, maybe 20 kids total between the 2 grades in each room.
Okay.
With a teacher.
So how many rooms were there in the school then?
Well, there would have been second, third, fourth, like 4 classrooms.
4 classrooms, okay. With 4 teachers.
And then the teacher I had for 3rd and 4th grade was also the principal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so Mrs. King, she was also the principal and a teacher. And then one of the other teachers, I don't remember her name, but she was like the music teacher. So she was the teacher, and then she also taught music.
Okay.
So there was different times when we would have like music stuff going on. So yeah, with an old wooden piano.
Old wooden piano?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said there were windows. 1 door, 2 doors, 1 door?
There was one big outside door in the front, and then a smaller door at the back of the building to get out. But it was just a regular sized door in the back, but it was kind of more like a double type door in the front, bigger door there. But that was the only 2 entrances and exits out of there. And then we had, like I said, lower level where we had lunch, but it was just a big open room where there was tables and they had well, actually the milk got delivered every day. Somebody would come and deliver the containers, milk crates of milk, and every day, and then that's what got used up for lunch. And so then if we had any extra, then you might get an extra milk or orange drink or something for snack in the afternoon, if there was leftover stuff to use it up. Because they really didn't have any, cooler or anything like that at the school.
So did you have electricity, indoor plumbing?
Electricity, indoor bathrooms, boy and girl bathroom. I think there was like 2 stalls in each bathroom. It was, not real big, but there was indoor plumbing. Yep, did have that.
You said that the desks here looked a bit similar.
Yeah, we had a wooden desk, they had the wooden seats, and the seat was connected to the top of the desk, and the desk, the top flipped up, so you could put your books, your papers inside and put the lid down to have a writing surface. And then there was a little curved area at the top of the desk where you could put like your erasers and your pencils and stuff laying up there. Yeah, so.
Blackboards, maps.
Yep, had a big blackboard at the front of the room, had the big United States map on the side, one side wall, the cursive, letter cursive, blackboard on the other side. Yeah, big globe, great big huge globe, world globe in the middle of the room.
Did you have pictures of George Washington or?
The main Abraham Lincoln,
Yeah.
the main presidents, had the flag hanging in the classroom, said Pledge of Allegiance every morning.
Every morning?
Yep, every morning said Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, that was the first, everybody got in there, and that was the first thing we did was Pledge of Allegiance every day. So we did that, and then started in with whatever lesson plan, and she would start with, you know, all right, classroom, grade 3, I want you to read such and such a story, while she was over here teaching math or spelling to the other grade, 4th grade. And then, you know, she'd spend so much time over here, and then you would have some kind of lesson plan or activity to do, and then she'd go back to the other grade over here and do one-on-one with them. So, yeah.
So she hopped around a little
She
bit.
hopped around, yeah. They just broke up the time, so you had some quiet time on each side, and then activity time with the teacher on each side.
How do you remember your teachers?
I guess I remember Mrs. King because she was like one of my favorites. I really liked her. She was an older lady, but I don't know, for some reason I really took to her. She was a very nice lady. She didn't take a lot of guff off of anybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was fair, but she was very smart, and I don't know, I guess I respected her. And I just remember her name. I can't remember my first and second grade teacher's name, but I remember her, and that she was the principal, and I don't know, I just kind of took to her. Yeah, I remember a lot of the, you know, of course I remember a lot of the kids in the class and a lot of the family names of kids, the different families around there, but yeah, I was terrified when they shut that school down. We're gonna have to go to the big school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was just used to having these, you know, you knew everybody.
Right.
You're going to a different school. I don't know any of these kids, you know, and you didn't know what was going to happen. You're going to have to ride the bus further down the road, and it was a whole different thing. So it was kind of a scary thing.
How do you remember your classmates at Earl School? Did you get along? Like,
yeah, I mean, it was, you know, typical school. You got, for the most part, got along with most everybody, but you still had some of the boys who were, you know, like to pick on some of the kids, and that were, you know, like to do that. But for the most part, everybody got along pretty well. And out on the recess, you still had your scuffles and things going on the merry-go-round or the slide or whatever. But mostly we got along with each other pretty well. For one thing, all the families knew each other, so that kind of made a difference too. You know, it's like, oh geez, you know, if so-and-so causes too much trouble, well, we know mom or dad or the older brother or older sister, and they would pretty much put a stop to it. So yeah, we all pretty much got along.
so you went up to 8th grade, or what grade was considered the end of rural school in Illinois?
In that school it was 1st through 8th.
Through 8th? So you didn't even have kindergarten?
No, there was no kindergarten. It was just 1st grade through 8th grade.
So did you have like big farmer 8th grade boys in your class?
We had some big boys.
Yeah.
We had the Staker boys. There was Larry and Gary. They were twins. They were big football sized guys. Yeah, they were big boys. I think they were probably the biggest guys in the school. And then there was a couple of guys that were pretty good sized too, but those two, yeah, for sure. And I mean, they were great big guys, but they were pretty good guys too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they grew up next to an acreage, and yeah, they were just probably 6'2" by the time they got to 8th grade. They were big guys.
Did they ever have to leave for a couple months for like harvest season or anything and come back, or?
No, we didn't have too much of that there. No, we didn't have too much interaction with, leaving for farming or helping with the farm and stuff there. Yeah.
Very small human being, you. So how do you think your classmates remember you?
They probably remember me as quiet. Believe it or not, I was quiet.
What?
I didn't say a whole lot. I had 2 or 3 really close friends that we hung with, and I don't know. Probably, I would hope, nice. And I liked school, so hopefully they're like, yeah, she wasn't any trouble in school, and everybody kind of got along with her and fun. But yeah, I was kind of quiet. I didn't.
But you enjoyed real estate.
I enjoyed the experience. I really liked it because you got to know the other kids in both classes you're in the same room with. You got to know everybody really well. And I mean, you were there all day, and then you all ate lunch together, and you all had recess together, and it was such a small grouping of kids that, who else did you have to play with? And who else did you have to eat with? And if you had a question or needed help on something, who else? This is it. This is what you have. So it wasn't like you were in a room of 30 kids in one class. It was just a small group. So
right.
And then when you went home and on the weekends and stuff, who did you play with? Those kids, because you were all right there on the same, a lot of the kids on the same blacktop, or there was a blacktop and then a dirt road that went the other way, and you rode your bike down there and played with them. So that was your community right there.
Right.
So
do you remember your earliest memory of country school, like the first day, or just an early memory particular? Or a memory that just stands out the most?
I just remember the one thing that always stuck out in my mind, and I may have told you this story, but and I think I was like in first or second grade. I was small, and we had this one dog who would always go with us down. We had a long gravel driveway. And this one dog would always go with us and wait with us until the bus came. Well, for whatever reason that day, that dog decided that it was going to go to school. So, get to school, and it was like first thing in the morning. And there is our dog out in front of the schoolhouse just barking and barking and barking and will not shut up. I'm like, oh my God, it's our dog. And so, of course the teacher, she's like, does anybody know whose dog that is? And I'm like, I do, that's my dog. So then they call my mom, can you come get your dog? So mom has to come over in the car and get the dog and load up the dog and take the dog back home. She only did that one time, and I don't know why that one day she decided she was going to come and be with us at school, but yeah, here she was, just
couldn't get away
making a scene at the school.
She doesn't like wait there and get in the driveway until you come home, does she?
Well, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she would know about when it was time for the bus to come back at the end of the day. So she'd be like, our driveway, it had a flat part and then a gravel hill. And so she would be like at the top of the hill, and she would see the bus, and she'd come down the hill and walk us back to the house. And that was a daily thing. Yeah, she would just do that. She'd be down there, and yeah, when we got on the bus, she would go back to the house, and then when it was about that time, she'd come again. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Which was kind of cool.
Let's see here. What did you wear to school? Like, what was a typical attire for students back then?
A lot of time we wore like little, well, we could wear shorts, shorts and tops when it was hot because we had no air conditioning or anything like that. And just opened the windows and had fans. So there was nothing, no air conditioning. But we just wore like regular pants or, I mean, sometimes we wear little, well, we call them skirts with the little shorts with the little skirt flap on the front. Wore those quite a bit, loved those things. Little dresses, or the boys, of course, they mainly wore like blue jeans and t-shirts or sweatshirts, stuff like that. It wasn't anything that was a uniform or anything like that. Yeah, it was just typical like country kid, flannel shirts, whatever anybody, could afford, because none of us really had a lot of money, and with a lot of kids and stuff, and clothes got handed down from kid to kid, and you just kind of wore what was available to you. So
Right.
yeah.
I'm sure in the winter it was very different, or very much the same. Like, for snowstorms. Did you have snowstorms?
Oh yeah.
Did that ever
Big time.
impact your ability to get to school?
Yeah. I mean, there was, of course, some days when you just couldn't get there. So, and there was no school, and or the bus couldn't get through because the roads were drifted shut. Yeah, we used to have huge snowstorms and stuff where you were stuck for 2-3 days.
They'd cancel school, of course.
And there was no school, and you couldn't get in and out of the drive. And I remember one time when I was probably about 5th or 6th grade. My dad and I literally walked to town with a sled. Probably 3-4 miles because we were out of milk and bread, and we couldn't get there because the roads were always all farm fields. The roads were drifted shut.
Yeah.
So we found out that the store was open in town, and we walked with a sled, a couple sleds actually, and got basic stuff and walked back. Yeah. So, I mean, you just did what you needed to do at that point.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, sometimes the school was closed and you just couldn't get there.
Right.
Yeah.
So what time did you typically arrive at school? Like, what was it like 8 to 4, 9 to 4, 9 to 5?
It was like 8 to 3:30
Okay.
was the time. And we would have, we'd have a morning recess break, or if it was the weather was nasty, we'd just do something, have something in the room, like maybe we'd do some kind of a verbal game, or like a quiz game, or she'd just give us a little free time where you could draw on the chalkboard, or you could do different activities, maybe color or something like that, if it was rainy or snowy or too cold to do anything. And we'd, then lunch break, and then we'd have an short little afternoon break, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour or something like that. Yeah.
In between your breaks, what lessons did you study? What, like math?
Yeah, we had math, history, geography, learn about, the states and different countries, and of course we had writing, cursive writing, printing, we'd have to take turns like reading out loud in different whatever book we were reading at the time. She had worksheets, but it wasn't your typical like workbooks like you have now. She would like hand print sheets, because you didn't have all these books and all that. So she would do like, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like the lines were always this light blue. It was white paper, but it was a different kind of printing, and the papers always had this kind of chemical smell to them, because it was like it was almost like a kind of a blueprint kind of thing, where she'd have to print off these sheets, and they'd be like oh, there might be a lesson activity on there or something she would want you to practice your writing on and that. And they always kind of had this kind of weird kind of chemical smell to them because of the printing press. It was the chemicals from the printer that she had to use because it wasn't like a,
Right.
you know, a Xerox printer like we have today. You had to put chemical in it, and that's what they had to print out all these activity sheets and lesson sheets and stuff. So yeah, we would do that. Yeah, we would have, you know, certain supplies, real basic supplies, you know, 3 or 4 pencils and crayons and erasers and very
Were those
basic.
provided for you?
No.
No, you had to.
You had to get all your own supplies. Yeah, no, you had to provide all that stuff. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite lesson? Least favorite lesson?
I always liked math and history, geography.
Mhm.
I always liked those 2 areas the best. Thought those were interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Probably history, geography was probably my favorite.
Yeah. Your least favorite?
I didn't like writing very much because I don't write very. My writing is awful, so it's probably because I always kind of got. You need to write better. You need to write better. I can't. So I probably any writing like activities that we had to do. I didn't like that so much because I knew I was going to get criticized on that one. So I was wanting to hurry and get it done, and I never have gotten any better with that. My writing is still awful, so yeah, I didn't like that.
So your teachers pretty much held down the fort pretty well, right? Like, did she have any specific discipline techniques or?
Well, you would get extra lessons to do, or she may have you stay after school. You know, there was the detention. I don't know if they called it detention necessarily, but you might have to stay. You might have to clean erasers. You might have to help clean the room. There was a lot of different things she could throw out there to get discipline, or you might have to help clean up the lunchroom, or, you know, if you didn't get to go to recess, you'd have to stay in and do some activity. You can go outside and play. Yeah. So once or twice of that, a lot of that stuff stopped.
Did students ever like hold up their hands, like if they had to go to the bathroom, like 1, 2? Yeah. Pretty.
Yeah.
It's a pretty universal thing.
It's pretty universal.
Yeah.
That was kind of the way to do it. You had to go, and she'd let you go.
Any other rules of the classroom, like?
Well, pretty much like when you got there in the morning, of course everybody was chitty chatty and stuff first thing in the morning and stuff, but when the teacher would come in the room, you better calm down. You better, settle down and stuff and kind of get yourself together, and then, then like I said, there was a process. Like we would stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning, Mrs. King. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. And then she would usually write on the chalkboard, 3rd grade, here's what we're going to do today. 4th grade, here's what we're going to do today. So you'd kind of have an idea of what's going to be happening for the day. And then she would kind of say, okay, we're going to start with the 3rd grade first, or we're going to start with the 4th grade first. So you guys are going to do this while I'm over here doing this. So yeah, then there was a process. And you knew at a certain time of the day. There was a big clock above the chalkboard up here. There's always the clock right there. So when it was 9:30 or whatever, okay, we get to go out for recess for a little bit. You get a break, and yeah. So there was a definite routine every day, which was great. I mean, you knew it was going to happen. So.
Right. And then you knew it was lunchtime. What did kids typically eat back then?
Well. Peanut butter and jelly, lunch meat and cheese, bologna and cheese, or, once in a while, like if mom made meatloaf or something like that, maybe you get a meatloaf sandwich or something, an apple and some crackers and cheese, and maybe, depending on the season, maybe you get some peaches, or you get, whatever happened to be in season or something. We'd have some fruit or some carrots or something like that, but it was that kind of stuff every day. Because, like I said, we couldn't heat anything up. It's not like you could bring, spaghetti or chili or something like that. It was mainly, you had to have something that was cold, a cold sandwich or something like that you could eat that wasn't going to have to be heated up, or, of course there was no microwaves or anything like that. It was all, hand lunches.
Did you have lunch pails or like lunch boxes or?
Yep. Had lunch boxes. Some of the kids had lunch boxes. Some of the kids just brought a paper sack lunch, but a lot of the kids had lunch boxes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. You said your school had a cafeteria, which is really interesting. Not quite common here in Iowa. Let's see here. And then you went outside for recess. What kind of games did you play? You said there was a playground?
There was a playground, and we had a great big, it had a wooden deck on it, but it had the big iron metal bars on it. That was the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
That I'm sure they would probably outlaw today, because if wet, they would fly. And a couple kids would hang on those bars and run around and get it going for the other kids. So we had one of those, had a great big metal slide with metal stairs and metal handrails, and swings that were just a leather seat with the chains. There was probably 6 or 8 of those, maybe. That was it. So, I think, yeah, that was it. So we'd play, tag, or we had some of those rubber balls, dodgeball. Like, what else did we play? We had jump ropes. We'd do jump rope.
Did you play like Annie I Over, or games like Goose and Goose Duck? I don't.
Goose.
Goose Duck?
Yeah. Or
like played that. Yeah. Red Rover. Those are the main ones I think we played. Yeah. Of course, I'm sure there were other ones, but those are the main ones we played. Yeah.
And then it was end of lunch. What did you play the same in the winter? No problem, just going out.
Yeah, I mean, you get your boots, your gloves, and your scarves on, and go out and play. I mean, unless it was 10 below zero or something. But yeah, if it was just some snow on the ground, we'd still go outside and mess around for a while. So it didn't really matter.
So then you came back in, continued with your lessons. You said you had a piano, correct? Did you have like a record player or anything, or just piano?
Just a piano that I remember. I don't think we had a record player or anything. It was mainly piano. And if the music teacher, if she wasn't, available, sometimes we would just sing songs on our own without the piano. So yeah, no, we didn't have a record player or anything like that.
But your music teacher was separate. Like she wasn't. The teacher, your regular teacher didn't teach music. You had somebody come in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she would, like make a circuit. So if it was like her day to be at the school, then she would come to the classrooms and do a music lesson.
Oh, interesting.
So
That's
it wasn't
another difference.
It wasn't all the time. It was maybe once a week. We'd have music. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Let's see here. Asked about your teachers. Weird question. You had all female teachers
Yes.
that you remember?
Yes.
Were they married? Feel free to look around, guys.
I think a couple of them were. There were. Mrs. King was for sure. And if I remember, I think there was another lady who was married, but the other two, I don't think, they were not married. But it was all women
Okay.
at the school.
So it wasn't illegal for married women to teach then?
No.
In Illinois? Okay.
No.
That's another difference. Because in Iowa, at one point it was illegal for a woman to be married and to teach. Yeah, like they
Really?
required women to be single. That's very
Oh.
interesting.
Didn't know that.
Difference.
Yeah. No.
Let's see here. We talked about lunchtime a little bit. Talked about recess. So let's talk about your end of day. You took the bus home, correct?
Mhm.
Yep. What time? You said 4 o'clock? No, 3:30, correct?
3:30ish, yeah.
Did you have homework?
Sometimes, not always. Not always. I mean, sometimes she would give us stuff, but it really wasn't a lot of homework. We might have a couple of worksheets or something to do to bring back the next day, but it wasn't a whole list of things that we had to do. Or she might have us take whatever book we were reading to read a chapter or two, and then the next day we would talk about it and have a discussion about whatever book we were reading. But it wasn't everyday homework, no.
Okay. Let's see here. Weird question. Did your teacher ever stay with you or in somebody's home within the community? Like, let's say if there was a big snowstorm.
Not that I'm aware, no.
Okay.
No. I've never heard anything like that, no.
Let's see here. You didn't attend up to 8th grade, but do you know if Illinois had 8th grade exams to pass on to high school?
I don't know.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Yeah.
Let's see here. But you experienced consolidation. And you said you were pretty terrified to go to a big school.
I was scared to go to the big school.
What was that experience like? That transition?
The bus ride that first couple days was I had such a gut ache. It's I had no idea what to expect, or it was such a lot bigger school. What if I don't know what room I'm supposed to go to? What's the whole lunch thing gonna be like? And there's all these kids I'm not gonna know, and this new teacher, I don't know this teacher. Because in the other school, even though maybe you didn't have that teacher, you knew the teacher because there was only 4 of them. And so going to this other school, and there was gonna be 2 or 3 5th grades. And not just a 4th and a 5th grade together. It was going to be, a couple of 5th grades. So you didn't know if you were going to know anybody in the class because before you knew everybody. So it was scary. It was scary.
Yeah, you're going from a couple grades to just 1 grade.
To 1 grade.
Yeah.
And a lot more kids. And, and it's all your grade all day. It wasn't separated where she was splitting half of her time over here and half of her time over here. It was all day, so it was a whole different routine. And so, but it was okay. It ended up being fine, but at first, just like anything like that, big change, it's kind of intimidating, especially for a kid, it's intimidating. So.
Did the instruction change from the teacher? Did she lecture, or was it more one-on-one?
In the
new school?
In the new school? It was more kind of talking at you instead of more time, one-on-one time, like it was in the smaller school, in the rural school. She's still, it was a good teacher, but it was a different process. We still did the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning and everything, but it was different because there was more kids. So she was more telling you a lot of information, and then wanting you to do something based on that information. She would still do one-on-one with you, but it was just not as much as you had before.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have a particular memory from the consolidation experience?
They had a better playground. And they had hot lunch.
But I'm sure your classmates changed too.
The
right?
classmates changed. Yeah. I guess probably the biggest thing is I always felt like these other kids were like the uppity kids, you know, because we were the country kids and lived out on, you know, out in a certain area. And these kids were like from the subdivisions and stuff like that, where they were like have all these neighborhoods and the nicer houses and stuff like that. So I kind of felt like, and some of them were kind of like that, to where they, you kids over here, we don't really want to deal with you. But there was others that were fine and got to be really good friends with. But at first it was kind of like, oh, those are those new kids over there, you know. So we kind of tended for a little while, we kind of tended, like when you had lunch or recess, we kind of find each other and hang with each other. Yeah. Because that was our comfort level. Right. But after a while, that went away. After everybody kind of got to know each other, it got to be better.
So what were the initial interactions between the country kids and the town kids then?
Just kind of distant to each other because you didn't know them. Right. You know, especially us kids that were in the 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th grade, the older kids, you know, by then you're getting to the age where it kind of, socially, you're kind of trying to interact and connect. The younger kids, I don't think probably had as much problem with it, but 5th grade on up, we seem to have a little more problem with it. But like I said, after a little while, then we got comfortable with each other and everything was okay. But for the first couple of months, we were just kind of trying to feel each other out and figure out, okay, who's who here, and are you a good kid or who are you, you know? So, yeah.
Did your lessons change at all, or were pretty much the same?
Yeah, they were different. They were more, I would say, more structured. We had, you know, we had more like workbooks, and the books were, of course, we had access. The bigger school had a library where we just had various, like maybe she had like a bookcase in the classroom with books, but at the other school, the bigger school, you had a library where we didn't have a library. Right. So you had access to a lot more information. You could go check out books to read and take home and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was different. The books were a little bit newer. We had more like workbooks. Yeah, things like that we didn't really have at the country school. Interesting.
So do you remember how many students were in your class at town school compared to country school? You said there were 2 grades in country school, so there were probably like 15, 20-ish students?
In a room?
Yeah. And then in town school?
There was probably, I'd say, 20 to 25 kids in each classroom, and then there was like 2 5th grades. So you're like doubling. Well, more than that, because that was 2 grades in one room. So now you've got 1 grade in each room, and you've doubled the size of that. So it was quite a bit bigger.
So you said, did you say you felt sad about leaving real school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. It was, you know, your own little community right there. So yeah, felt sad about leaving the teachers, even though some of the teachers they got to go to the new school too. But yeah, it's kind of sad about leaving your school and you know, things that you knew there, and you didn't know what was going to happen to your friends. Were you still going to be friends in the new school? All that kind of stuff that you think about as a kid. So yeah, it was sad. It was hard.
Yeah. Do you remember what happened to your rural school?
The actual building is still there. It's now a church.
Oh, really?
It's called Agape Church.
Uh-huh.
So it's still there. It got repurposed. It got bought. For a while, it was bought. Actually, a guy actually bought it and was actually living in the house, in the school.
Uh-huh.
And then that went on for several years, and then he ended up selling it, and then this church group bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, now it's a church.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Was it ever used for other things like voting, elections, or?
Yeah, it was used for voting. It was a polling place. Yeah, it was. I forgot about that, but yeah, it was.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool that it's still standing.
Mm-hmm. It's still there. It's still white, and it still pretty much looks like it did for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. It just always makes me happy that people preserve these schools instead of just tearing them down.
Yeah, no, it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember other rural schools in your area at all?
I know there was a rural school north of us in Sparland. And it was just a little, I think it was even smaller than the school that I went to. It wasn't very big at all. And it just sat not too far off of the Illinois River.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty small.
Is it still there?
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that one's still there or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What's really cool about your rural school, though? Let's see here. You had a summer break, correct?
Mm-hmm. Summer break.
You went back to your house. Did you help out farm? Like, is that what typically what students did back then?
There were a couple kids that their family actually farmed, but a lot of us just, our families, they had like other jobs. We just lived in the country. Like my dad worked at Caterpillar. One of the other dads worked at another business. There was, like I said, a couple of kids whose families were farmers. But mostly it was just, we all just lived out in the country and had a little piece of ground, and yeah, that was just, like originally we had lived in Peoria, big city, and then this property came available, and I went to kindergarten in Peoria at a Peoria public school, and then we moved to the country, and then I went to first grade on up in Chillicothe.
So you started in public school, went to rural school, and then went back to public school.
Right.
What?
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What was that like going from public school to rural school then?
Well, it was kindergarten, so I was like, yeah, and I think there was 2 kindergartens in that school. So yeah, I mean, there was a pretty big group of kids in that public school in Peoria. But yeah.
Kind of like a reverse. In a sense.
I kind of jumped ship on that, you know, from public to rural, back to more of a public. Yeah.
What? Oh my gosh. But I'm sure you were so young back then.
I was so little that, you know, it was like it was full day. It was like half day kindergarten. So, you know, by the time you get there and you take your nap and have a snack and color a little bit, it's time to go home.
End of the day. Do you remember, let's see here, any special events that involved your school, your rural school, and the community, like holiday events? Like, did you put on plays or anything at school or programs?
Well, we had like an open house kind of a thing, so you could, you know, show your parents your room and, you know, the papers that you did, and meet the teacher and all that, and they would have like cookies and stuff like that. So yeah, we had like it was usually a couple months into the school year. We'd have an open house and do that.
Like Christmas or?
We would have like Christmas parties in the school, like classroom parties and stuff like that. But nothing where it involved, you know, like everybody coming to the school per se. We would have just, you know, classroom stuff like Halloween party, Christmas party, Valentine's party where everybody, bring treats and make Valentine cards and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we did all that kind of stuff in there. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds pretty typical. Yeah. But what about, let's see here, do you remember any major local, national, or world events that occurred while you were in rural school? And did that affect your rural school experience?
Not that I can really think of while I was at the rural school. No, I really don't remember anything like that going on at that point. Yeah.
So it was the 60s, so it was kind of that height of Vietnam, right?
Yeah, Vietnam was going on about then. So yeah, there was always seemed like there was something on the news all the time about Vietnam and protests and stuff like that.
But that didn't affect you.
It didn't affect us really in any way. It didn't really have any direct impact on us where we were. No. And we were far enough away from any really major metropolitan areas that there wasn't really anything going on in our town or anything. So it was pretty calm. Yeah.
Anything in town school? Like anything when you went to public school?
No, not really. Not really. We kind of stayed, we kind of away from all that kind of activity and disturbance of all that. We really weren't affected by that stuff. Yeah.
I have to ask because some people, went to middle school during World War II and they talk about how that greatly,
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
you're different era here, so we have to.
Yeah, I'm a little bit after that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So then you went to a town school. You attended through 12th grade?
Went through 8th grade at the elementary, and then from that elementary school, then went into the town of Chillicothe to high school.
And you finished high school, and then you worked for Caterpillar, right?
Yep, I was a high school co-op for Caterpillar my senior year. So I went to school in the mornings, went to Caterpillar in the afternoon, and did my co-op hours my senior year there. And then like 4 months after I graduated or so, they called me and wondered if I wanted to do part-time. And then a little bit after that, they asked me if I wanted to, get hired. And so I put in my app and got hired. Like that same year after I graduated. So, yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Your whole span. Right?
Yeah, there you go. And there I was.
What are some important takeaways you want people to remember about your rural school experience?
I guess probably just that it was a lot more personal. You got to know the kids a lot better. The teachers, you had more of a personal relationship with the teachers and the teacher you had and the teacher in the school, because there weren't that many of you, and you all kind of had to work together if there was a problem, or maybe somebody was having a hard time or something. You kind of all knew about it, and you kind of, like if something happened in somebody's family or something like that, then, everybody kind of knew about the situation and was supportive and helpful to each other. So it was a lot more personal because there weren't so many of you, and there were fewer families. So that was a really good part of it.
Do you have any best or worst memories of country school?
Probably the worst memory was the one kid that was in my class. I don't know if he had a crush on me or what. And it was like 4th grade. And he just kept pestering me all the time, shooting little paper things at me and little things, just aggravating. Finally the teacher caught him. So I put a stop to him. Jimmy. Put a stop to Jimmy.
What was his name? Jimmy?
Jimmy Pollock. Yeah. I put the kibosh to him.
She held down the fort pretty nicely.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Any lessons that you learned from this part of your life?
I guess we learned a lot about, to me, I think I learned a lot about community, about being, I want to say patriotic, but we learned a lot about our country and being respectful of the flag and doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and I guess just being proud of your community, your country, each other, and just being, trying to be a good citizen in that. And that was kind of part of it wasn't a direct lesson, but it was kind of part of the fabric of kind of our day-to-day activities. And some part of your lessons in that, there was something about a lesson or a moral or something about how to, like I said, be a good person in your community, contribute, and be a good citizen.
Yeah.
So I think I do remember that. And so we were all, like I said, we all pretty much got along, and we were pretty good to each other for the most part. You're going to be ornery to each other, but we were pretty good to each other mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Helped you in the long run.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah. Yeah. And since there was, not a lot of us together, I think you kind of learned how to kind of talk to each other and get along. And like I said, who are you going to play with? Who are you going to eat lunch with? And, you need to kind of figure out how to get along with everybody and, learn how to do that. So you didn't have a lot of choices.
Right.
It's not like you're going to, go to town.
Yeah.
It's either this or be by yourself.
Right.
So.
And then there was Jimmy.
And there was Jimmy picking on me.
What are the biggest similarities or differences between country school and today's school, in your opinion?
I think that the teachers have so many more things that they have to deal with now other than the students. I think it's made it very hard for the teachers to teach. Just to teach the kids, because now they have all these things they have to make sure kids are meeting a certain level, and you have to have all these requirements, and you can't discipline the kids like you used to. You really can't, or else you're going to get in trouble with somebody. I think it's made it very hard for the teachers.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's not always the teacher, I think sometimes the parents aren't as involved as they used to be with the kids to set expectations for the kids when they're going to school. Here's what you should be doing. You need to sit there and listen to the teacher. Don't, give the teacher a hard time and the other kids a hard time. And so if the teacher has trouble with a student, I'm not so sure that they're getting the parental help that I think seems to me that there used to be to back up the teacher. I mean, I'm not saying the teacher's always right, but they need help. And I think there's just a lot of stuff put on the teachers, and a lot of funding and different things. It's not as great for the teachers anymore. So I think there's a lot of things that they need help with. That if you can help, anything you can help with the schools or the teachers doing. So
Yeah.
that's
Definitely.
my kind of perception of it.
Yeah. A lot of people say the discipline has just drastically changed.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. I mean, a lot of teachers, they can't even touch kids anymore hardly without it being an issue. And it's like, well, we used to hug the teacher. We had interaction with the teacher. And if a kid needed discipline, then they needed to be, I'm not saying, corporal punishment or anything like that, but, if you were told to sit down and be quiet, well then you should do that because you're being a disruption to the other kids, where a lot of kids, they just don't pay any attention. Well, I can do whatever I want. You can't make me. Well, we need more of that, I think, because it makes it harder for the other kids can't learn either when there's a problem. So,
but in country school, you came in, got to business, did your work, and that was a reflection on the home too. I suppose.
Exactly.
Like that was And
there were expectations, you go to school, you behave, you do what you're supposed to do, and I better not hear anything that you were a problem at school, or there's going to be a consequence at home along with at school. So, and I'm not so sure there's a lot of that anymore from some parents. Not all, but some.
I'm sure you had certain expectations from your parents, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. You know, if I needed help, they helped me with homework, or if I had a problem, you know, they would help me with it, and you know, that's just, and like I said, then they expected you to, if you had homework, do it. If you know, had a question about something that the teacher talked about, what was it? And you talked about it at home.
Yep.
So.
And that followed you to school.
And I followed you to school.
Tight-knit community right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Kim, is there anything else you want to talk about that we didn't get to? Anything?
I think so. We pretty well covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Illinois just fascinates me. Wow. Do you ever go back and to where you grew up and see that rural school? Or? Yeah,
from time to time I get back over there. Yeah. I was a couple years ago. I was back over there and went out the, you know, where I grew up, and drove around down and then to see, you know, what's changed and what's still here, what's maybe gone, or if somebody bought, you know, so-and-so's old property, that they changed it, or what have they done? Yeah, and the building, it was still there. Yeah.
Do you talk to any of your old classmates at all, or?
Once in a great while I'll run across somebody, or like if like when I went back there 2 years ago, I stopped at a couple places in Chillicothe, in the little town, you know, went and visited with some people, and I ran into a couple other people that, yeah, I was like, oh, hey, how are you? You know, you're still here?
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun to catch up with everybody and see what they're doing, and talk about their kids and their grandkids and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's fun.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Well, I can't think of any. Do you have any questions or anything? Or?
So it's just interesting to hear, like, from your perspective, because I've been working with all of the Iowa stuff, not very long, but like I've been sifting through the Iowa stuff, but to hear, like, because I'm from Illinois, so like to be like, I never even really thought about rural schools in Illinois.
Yeah.
And as you started talking more about it, I remembered that I'm pretty sure there's one in my hometown out in the country. I think so. I think I remember seeing it. I'm pretty sure it's still there. Like, I should go out and find it.
Yeah, you should go check it out.
Yeah, like I remember seeing it and being like, oh,
Yeah.
schools or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, it's really interesting to think about,
Yeah.
and learn about.
It's amazing what they've done with these rural schools too. I mean, some people turn them into homes,
Oh,
churches.
Right.
Some people buy them too. Like they go, like they're on public auction. They'll go out set to buy one too and use them for garages, for studios. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Make it into a really cool apartment, you know,
Yeah.
and, you know, like if you're like an artist or, you know, got a home-based business or something like that, you could totally make that into your home and have your business right there too. So, yeah, I'm glad that, you know, it's still there, and like I said, they turned it into a church and the building's still standing so after all that time. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
good deal. It just warms my heart.